So, you two have quite a few things in common, I think. It doesn't look like it, when you start reading your books, but obviously you got the obvious thing, being the age.
Yeah.
You must be so tired of hearing about that, being the wonder boy of crime fiction. But I mean, it has to be touched upon. I mean, you, Christoffer, you were 23 when your first book, Fallet Vincent Franke, was published. And Roger, is it true that you literally turned in Ghostman on the day upon your college graduation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's ambition.
The day I received my diploma, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the poetry of that, just going from one.
Certainly, yeah. It was, I expected to be underemployed or unemployed for at least a little bit after graduation. It was a real fortune for all that.
Yeah, I mean, fortune is...
Also, literally waiting until the last minute to send my book in.
Yeah, I mean, have you been shocked by the reception of your book?
Oh, I think anybody would.
Yeah.
It sold in 26 countries. It was an international bestseller.
Yeah.
It was published by Knopf in the United States, possibly the best publisher.
Yeah.
I'd say anywhere, for any purposes. It was absolutely shocking.
Yeah. Christoffer, what do you think is the advantage of getting a career as a writer at a very young age, as you did?
Well, when you make a lot of stupid mistakes, people don't care because you're young. So he's young. He doesn't know better. He'll learn as he moves along.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think that from a fiction perspective, I think that the crime genre, it needs young voices, it needs new voices.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in Sweden. I don't know actually the case in the US, but in Sweden, I mean, the mean age of the crime writer is, I'm not sure, but I think it's well
57.
above.
57. No.
I don't know if 57 is right, but I mean, it's above 40.
Easily
I'm sure.
over 50.
Definitely, yeah.
You think it's over 50?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In the United States, it's often a second career. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, and I mean, I think that's nothing wrong with that. I mean, but I think that people of the same age, they tend to have gone through the same transitions, and they think about the same stuff, and they talk the same way. Many do, and I think that young people, they have a different tone of voice, different perspective. They come in with other experiences, so I think that's good for the sort of diversity of the genre.
Yeah, definitely. Like you both said, I mean, if you think of crime fiction historically, it's basically old ladies. You got I mean, Agatha Christie, the epitome of the sort of classic detective novel. And then speaking of late careers, I mean, P.D. James started writing in her 40s or 50s, I think, and was active until she died well into the 90s. So, but the thing that I find so interesting about both of you is that yes, you're obviously young, although sorry to say that will go away. but the thing is, you both seem like
I should hope.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, God willing. Yeah. But the thing about both of you is that you seem like old souls in a way. I mean, you're very invested in the older type of. I mean, you bring something completely new and fresh to the genre. It rejuvenates it, but you do have a very strong sense of tradition, both of you, I think. I mean, you're very inspired by Sjöwall Wahlöö, for example, the mother and father of the traditional a crime novel when it comes to social commentary and stuff like that. And you seem we were just talking before we get up on stage, I mean, you love Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler and the old guys.
The old hard-boiled.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you do sort of write yourself into that tradition.
Yeah.
In a sense.
For me, I think being young allowed me to study the whole tradition of mystery novels kind of as an outsider.
Yeah.
That I didn't spend like 40 years just reading crime novels. I haven't seen the genre develop in real time. I can only look at it historically. So that way, that's kind of allowed me to pick and choose my heroes in a way. I'm not forced to respond to any of my contemporaries because I have no contemporaries.
Yeah, that's right.
Instead, I have the luxury of being able to write the sort of books that fascinate me from whatever age they came.
Yeah, so who are your heroes?
I am a big fan of Robert Crais.
Yeah.
And Robert Crais has been writing the same series, the Elvis Cole and Joe Pike series since 1986.
Wow. That's dedication. And it's still as good.
2 years before I was born.
Wow, yeah, that's the same year that you were born.
Yeah.
He's been writing it forever, and I was amazed to discover him as a teenager because his books are written in this old style first person private eye fiction. She had legs that went on for days, that sort of thing. Heavily stylized. But he does it well, he does it entertainingly, it's hilarious on occasion. And he also manages to capture a certain place. He manages to capture Los Angeles beautifully. I was amazed to discover him because it kind of proved to me that yes, people still are writing and consuming the old style of noir writing that I really love.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. Speaking of Los Angeles and noir and outsiders, I know that we share a favourite author, all three of us, Bret Easton Ellis. I knew that you were a big fan, but obviously you were as well.
Big time.
And you can sort of tell when you read your books that it's an inspiration. I mean, obviously for you, I mean, you paraphrase the final words of the Imperial Bedrooms at the very end of your latest novel. And I'm probably one of the few people who discovered it. I had to text you saying that was really cool.
I try to do that. It's fun. To do that. I mean, I usually the Leo Juncker series has really been described as classic Swedish crime fiction. But when you read it and I too am a huge fan of like we spoke before about Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler. I haven't read this Robert Price. I have to read him now. It sounds very interesting. But if you look at the Leo Juncker series, it's essentially a first-person present tense narrative, which is classic American noir. So the Leo Juncker series is really sort of a mishmash of the Swedish classic tradition of Sjöwallvalen and so on, and the sort of more hard-boiled American school. Which I seldom get to talk about, so
that's neat. We could have like a whole hour. Unfortunately, we don't.
No, I know. But Bret Easton Ellis, he's a genius.
He is, definitely.
He should write more books, though. He writes like one book. He writes one book, and then he does like a movie and a podcast, which none of them are really good. And then he writes a great book, and then he does a so-so movie and a so-so.
And then he gets drunk on Twitter.
And gets drunk on Twitter. And says, "Thank God J.D. Salinger died." It's like, why?
I mean,
accidentally tries to buy cocaine
exactly.
on Twitter.
Did you hear about that? He was trying to text his dealer, but apparently he was on Twitter. So
he was so high on Xanax that he accidentally tweeted the text that he was going to send to his drug dealer. That is Los Angeles.
That is hardcore Los Angeles.
That is hardcore Los Angeles. One of the other things, because when I was preparing for this seminar, obviously I tried to sort of look upon the stuff that united you two as writers. You're both very interested in the notion of disappearing and being alone and constantly changing, and that's obviously that Bret Easton Ellis element to it as well. But I mean, I find particularly your character Jack, or whatever his name is, but we refer to him as Jack. I mean, you don't know the first thing about him. His job is literally to make himself disappear. And I find that so interesting in this day and age when it's all about, branding, getting yourself out there, posting selfies. I mean, it seems very sort of subversive in a really good way to have that kind of protagonist today.
It's become increasingly difficult to disappear in the modern world as the bourgeois practice of self-promotion has now leaked into every single profession. Everybody is self-promoting. Plumbers need to self-promote. They've got Facebook pages. You're supposed to follow them on Twitter, and that seems absurd to me. That everybody is obsessed with building this public persona, despite the fact that you could live perfectly well without one, and it takes a lot of effort to maintain a public persona. Often they're not true in any way, in any special way, which I think is one of the points behind Jack. That so much of our public identities, so much of the face that we put on for the world is just an act. It may feel real to us, it may feel more real to us than our private selves, but nonetheless we are constantly performing our identities.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's a great quote from this very long T.S. Eliot poem, The Love Song, the J. Apple Proof Rock. It's something about deciding which mask to wear today. Something like that. I'm not sure. Yeah, something like that. And it made me think of your books.
But it's interesting that we share, because in the Leo Juncker series, there's the main protagonist, Leo Juncker, and his friend. His friend essentially has a task of Jack in the
he's
Ghost
a professional.
He makes
criminal.
people disappear. Yeah, he helps people disappear. And the sort of justification or the reason behind writing that was essentially the same as yours. That everybody's obsessed with being seen and identity and sort of having a visual purpose in the world. And he sort of has his task to sort of make people just go away. So that's interesting that we share. I didn't know we had that. That's cool. That's really cool.
The first thing that I actually picked up on, because obviously I read all your books, and then I read Ghostman and loved it, and that was the first thing I thought about.
There's also a thing. For me, when like people disappearing, it's also sort of comes from a personal background, I guess, where you have. I went to school with lots of people who, they just seem to disappear. Like there was this one guy, he was a refugee from the war in Bosnia.
And we had a lot of that in the 90s.
He was like the lone immigrant in our class when we went to middle school. And one day he was just gone. He was just missing. Nobody knew where he went. And I haven't seen him since that day. I still, at least so I was like, what, where do people go when they disappear? It was just, so I think there's some, a psychotherapist would say that, that has something to do with it as well. But I don't listen to therapists anymore.
No, who does?
But I think it has to do equally with a desire to belong.
Exactly.
By constantly performing, we try to jam ourselves into a culture that we may not really fit. But I think more primarily, a fear of oblivion. The fear that if we don't leave a physical trace, that if we're not constantly taking photographs, that ultimately when it's over, it won't have really happened.
Exactly.
The record is more real than the experience.
But that's actually a bit crazy. People standing on beaches. Desperately trying to capture the perfect sunset and not actually experiencing it. So you live vicariously through the phones and social media and stuff. And to me, that's the beauty of books. That's why I think that books are always going to be here, because there's this enormous sense of presence, especially in your books, being written in the present tense. You just dive into it and you can sit down. Like, I remember I read a Joyce Carol Oates book.
Mine's in past perfect.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
It seems like it's present.
It does.
That's really interesting. I didn't think out of that. Jesus. But it seems very sort of out there and it's in it.
It's supposed to sound like it's somebody who's like the main character Jack, the criminal, is whispering in your ear. He makes you complicit in his crimes, which leads. I actually get that a lot. People think that it's present tense.
God, that's so interesting.
And
I'm a lit major. Jesus.
It's first person past perfect. Which is very natural in American crime fiction.
Yeah, that's true. I think Swedish crime fiction tends to be in the present tense much more, don't you think?
Swedish crime fiction?
Yeah.
Oh no! Almost everybody write in what we call preteritum, which is past tense.
Well, I tend to probably just read the books that take place in present tense.
I don't know why we do that. Why do the majority of Swedish crime fiction is written in third person and sort of past
but that's a traditional
third person,
narrative.
simple past.
Simple past. Yes.
That's a traditional narrative.
But it's really cool.
I'm sorry. There's a certain completion to action in the simple past tense. That when you've got a dialogue that's in present tense, he says, there's a certain sense that it's always continuing to happen.
Exactly.
That it's not a finite action.
Yeah.
So the simple past, despite the fact that it's less literally present, gives a sense that each individual action is done from the moment the sentence begins, as opposed to the moment the sentence ends.
Interesting.
That's clever.
I've actually studied tenses in an attempt to understand how suspense works.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's right. Yeah, you wrote your thesis. Yeah, Christoffer was telling me that you had to ask him about the thesis. There was about suspense novels and the way they work, isn't it?
Yes.
Essentially.
And tense actually has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
So future tense is, of course, that's nobody would ever consider writing a book in that. I'm sure people have.
Yeah, you will go, you will die. Yeah.
But that's a ridiculous concept.
Yeah.
But simple past is so elegant in a way because it doesn't matter where the sentence is in the book. It's always just happened as opposed to about to happen.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of about to happen, what do you think is next for the crime genre at the moment?
That was a smooth transition.
It was, wasn't it? I just saw her
Yeah.
doing the 5-minute sign. So,
Yeah.
What do you reckon? I mean, at this moment, we've seen a lot of domestic thrillers, in the wake of Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl, and I think that the noir movement is coming back as well. What do you think? Have you seen any more sort of trends out there at the moment? Have you picked up anything during these few days?
Oh, God, it's so... If I could predict trends in crime fiction, I would so totally be a publisher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
point.
I think the big thing at the moment, and I think it's going to continue to get bigger, are domestic crime. Domestic crime stories.
Yeah, I think so too.
Simple murders.
Yeah.
Or not really simple murders, but Hammett style. Highsmith. Style dramas.
Yes.
Where it's not like a cozy because the killer actually has a reason to kill things.
Yeah.
That was the thing that they said about Hammett. Hammett gave the killer a reason to kill again.
Yeah.
I think Highsmith style dramas are what's really gonna be big right now.
That's what I've been waiting for so long. So I'm
Girl
very
on
happy
a
that
Train is huge, and that's precisely
definitely.
that.
Girl on the Train. Yeah, it's a brilliant book actually. What do you like to read in terms of crime fiction right now, Christopher? Just the last sort of summing up.
Oh, right now. So right now I'm sort of obsessed by books that sort of weave a fictional narrative around a factual, objectively true event, like Elroy's American Tabloid, or Perfidia. I'm reading Perfidia by James Elroy now. I've just started reading The Power of the Dog by John Winslow, which is about the drug war in Mexico, which is...
I have to read that one.
It's one of the most brutal books I've read, actually.
Really?
It's a horrible book, but it's amazing. So I'm very much into that right now, but it probably has to do with the fact that I've just written a book that's sort of like that. Spins a fictional narrative around, objective, true event in some sense. So now, in hindsight, I'm trying to figure out how others did it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Guys, it's been fantastic talking to you. I wish I could have done it longer, but I have to catch a cab with Denise Miner in a moment.
Poor you.
She's for me. Crime time really sucks. So nice to talk to you, and I hope to see you again, Roger, next year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger Hobbs and Christoffer Karlsson.